conversations to come here at home as well as elsewhere in the Pacific Theater particularly. We're going to hear from one more presenter, again, an invaluable leader on the whole agenda of the Chinese Communist Party, what it is up to, what it seeks to accomplish, and how. He is a member of our Committee on the Present Danger China, I'm very proud to say, and a frequent contributor to these programs as well. Indeed, one of our most faithful contributors. His name is Colonel Grant Newsham, United States Marine Corps retired. He has the distinction of having also served as a Foreign Service officer. He's an attorney by training, but an entrepreneur with considerable success in East Asia for many years. He is an author as well of numerous essays, including several of direct relevance to today's topic, but also a book that is very much germane to the threat we face from the Chinese Communist Party and the need to understand it better. It's entitled When China Attacks, A Warning to America. Gordon Chang's book, Plan Red, which I neglected to mention a moment ago, China's project to destroy America, and Colonel Newsom's book, When China Attacks, are really bookends on this subject, and we're delighted to be able to feature both of them. We have, by virtue of, again, an interview that Colonel Newsham gave me earlier today for Securing America, the ability to present to you some of his relevant thoughts to this issue of the Ukraine war and China's role in continuing it. Let's go to the video with Colonel Newsham now.
The Chinese have been supporting the Russians from day one. There was flights from China with on transport aircraft with the transponders turned off, secret flights into Russia from almost the very beginning, with obviously sensitive technology involved, and the support for Russia from China has continued. For a couple of years, the Biden administration pretended it didn't exist, even though everybody knew it did. And then finally, the Chinese have said, well, we don't really care. Of course, we're going to give you this help. And what are you going to do about it? The Chinese, if you remember, before the war started, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin met, and they described it as a no-limits partnership. And the idea was that, well, China's going to give the go-ahead, and Ukraine's going to be gone, and Putin's going to get what he wants. And the Chinese were saying at the time, well, when the time comes for us to settle Taiwan once and for all, we expect the Russians to return the favor. And that was very much Chinese thinking on this. And it's simply continued. And the Chinese are glad to have this war going on. They've adjusted, of course, to the situation, and they, of course, are always seeing what the West's reaction is, what the U.S. reaction is, what's the potential downside for China, and they appear to see almost nothing. In fact, I think they see nothing that they don't really like, because this is a huge distraction for the Americans, for the West. Even the Japanese have to pay some attention to it. It's not just a question of taking up political bandwidth. It seems that despite America being the greatest country on earth, it seems like there's only like one or two things an administration can ever focus on with any seriousness, which is hard to imagine, but that seems to be the case. So all the focus is on Europe, not on China, not on Taiwan, not on Asia. And the Chinese are glad to have it, as is well known. Wang Yi, the top diplomat from China, said the other day, or recently, what I just said, that we're glad the war's going on and we'd like it to continue because it does cause a distraction. Also on the U.S. side, there's still people who think, well, we need China's help with fill in the blank, North Korea, transnational crime, fentanyl of all things. Therefore, we're not going to really call them out on what they're doing to support Russia. And that support includes buying Iranian oil, 90% of it, which is then used to produce, and the Iranians use the money to build drones, which they give to the Russians to keep the war going. The Chinese are, of course, providing drones directly, the full sort of the full models, not just components. And that's just, it's ongoing, and unless you apply pressure on China, your chances of getting a negotiated peace or an end to the war in Ukraine are much, much reduced. They probably don't even exist. And what has been done to pressure China for what they have done to support Russia? Nothing. And that's a bipartisan achievement. There are people, of course, on both sides who understand that something needs done, but nothing's been done. The Chinese look at it and must pinch themselves laughing that, well, we've supported the Russians who are keeping the Americans engaged. They're depleting their arsenals, and these are very seriously depleted. And they don't have the stuff to fight a war in the Pacific, and it's also become a domestic issue in the United States, where we have the, once again, we're turning on ourselves to decide what to do about Ukraine, about Russia. And when you're doing that, you're not thinking about the real threat, the ones who can kill us. Now, some people will say, well, look, the Russians and the Chinese, it's not really a relationship. They don't like each other. They're suspicious of each other. Nothing to worry about. Well, their strategic interests align. And that interest is to beat back and ideally destroy or defeat the United States. They may see it a little differently, but the end result is the same. They are both aligned against a common enemy, which is us, which is the West, the free nations, and they're cooperating freely. And they will do that, and they will continue to do that as long as it seems to be beneficial. And once again, if you're the Chinese and there's no downside risk, nobody's done anything to you, and you're killing 70,000 Americans or some tens of thousands every year from fentanyl, and they're still not doing anything to you, well, you're going to keep doing it. And that is what has given Russia the wherewithal to continue to prosecute this war the way they have. And I haven't mentioned North Korea. They've obviously provided troops, they've provided artillery shells, other ammunition, small arms, the things that keep the Russian war machine going. And that is done with China's approval. They wouldn't be doing it if Beijing didn't allow it. And once again, what has been done to the Chinese for doing this? Nothing. I've heard it said that when the North Koreans supply all this stuff to the Russians, well, the Chinese probably are backfilling it into North Korean arsenals. And it's plausible to me, but China is the core to all of this. And unless you address that, it's not going to happen. And you also notice that in our behavior here, we have no political warfare effort against the Chinese, even against the Russians, really. They've been doing all of this, and there's really been no effort to address the issue, as I say, from a non-kinetic standpoint, the political standpoint. Has anyone ever, for example, pointed out that Putin, in not exactly following in the tradition of Ivan Grozny, Ivan the Great, who took on the Mongols, or Peter the Great even, and he's the one who's turned Russia into a Chinese vassal state. Now, this is something you should be hearing nonstop, and you don't hear it at all. Do you hear anything about, from the U.S. side, successive administrations, about what China has been doing, as I say, to support Russia, but also their ulterior motives here? And China fully intends to get back the Russian Far East territories that they think the Russians took from them unfairly in the 18th century and a little later, some of them. They're going to get it back. And Putin must wake up every morning wondering if there's 5 Shenzhens on his side of the border, these huge, shiny cities. And the Chinese far outnumber the Russian population in that area. They are across the border. The local Russians hate it. Is anybody capitalizing on this to appeal to the Russian people? Not at all. And so the Chinese are getting away literally with murder, supporting people who are committing it. And yet we're letting 600,000 Chinese students come in as a sign of good faith. We're begging them to talk to us about fentanyl, which they could turn off in an afternoon. What have we done? Well, nothing at all. It's embarrassing, and the list goes on. TikTok, well, we've been talking for years about ending this. The Indians did it in about 72 hours. Us, we can't get around to it, and the White House now has a TikTok account. The Chinese must be, I suspect they're in some pain from having pinched themselves so hard at laughing at what we're doing. But when it comes to Ukraine and that situation and trying to end it, the road goes through Beijing, and they have no reason to stop what they're doing. We need to give them one.
Amen. Colonel Grant Newsom, excellent send-off for our conversation, further conversation.